The moment I pulled into our driveway, my gut told me something was off. Ethan's custom electric wheelchair, his lifeline, sat abandoned by his garden, one wheel stuck in the mud, its control panel glowing faintly. My boy would never leave it like that. It was his freedom, his way to move through a world that often felt too small for him. "Ethan," I called, my voice tight as I scanned the yard. The Colorado sun dipped low, casting shadows over the pristine lawns of Pinewood Estates, but there was no sign of my son. Then, a faint whimper from the side of the house stopped me cold. I found Ethan dragging himself across the grass toward the garden hose, his hands and forearms raw, red patches soaking through his jeans. "Dad," he gasped, eyes wide with pain. "She poured something on my plants. I tried to wash it off and it got on me. It burns." 12 years as a U.S. Marshal had taught me to stay calm in chaos, but seeing my 16-year-old son, his body already betrayed by cerebral palsy, like this, my heart pounded. I scooped him up, his lanky frame awkward but light in my arms, and carried him to the outdoor shower by the deck. As I rinsed his hands and legs, the sharp sting of bleach hit my nose. The burns on his skin, the splash patterns on his clothes, the wilted tomatoes and herbs in his garden, it wasn't an accident. Someone did this. "Who, Ethan?" I asked, though I had a name in mind. "Mrs. Harper," he said through clenched teeth. She was dumping a big, white bottle on my tomatoes. I tried to stop her, "Dad. Why does she hate my garden so much?" V. Wine Harper, the Pinewood Estates HOA president, had been a thorn in our side since we built Ethan's accessible garden 6 months ago. She called it unsightly, a blight on her perfect neighborhood. I never thought she'd go this far. "We're going to the ER," I told Ethan, helping him into clean clothes. "Then we're ending this." At the hospital, doctors confirmed second-degree chemical burns on Ethan's hands and legs. Scarring was likely, they said, as I stood by his bed, my phone buzzing with texts from my partner, Torres. "Cameras caught it all," he wrote. Harper waited until Ethan was in the garden, then poured bleach right on his plants. "It's backed up on the server." I'd installed those cameras after the third, anonymous, HOA complained about Ethan's garden. My years tracking fugitives and protecting witnesses had taught me to cover my bases, and now that paranoia was paying off. While Ethan rested, I made calls. One to Denver PD to report an assault, another to my boss at the Marshal VYC to warn her I might need time off. I didn't say it, but she knew VY and Harper had just picked a fight with the wrong man. We'd moved to Pinewood 14 months ago, after my wife, Sarah, lost her battle with cancer. I wanted a fresh start for Ethan, a place where he could heal. The wheelchair-accessible house and big backyard seemed perfect for his therapeutic garden. I've been upfront about his disability and our plans during the home purchase. The agent swore the HOA wouldn't mind reasonable accommodations. She was dead wrong. VY Harper started her campaign the day we broke ground on Ethan's garden. First, it was snide remarks about the VY Sewell clutter of raised beds. Then, complaints about the gravel path's color. Finally, official violation notices claiming the garden was an unauthorized structure. I countered with ADA paperwork and legal citations, which shut her up for a while. But her hostility didn't stop, it just got quieter, meaner. Sharp comments at block parties, whispers when Ethan wheeled by. What I didn't know, what I should have seen as a man who hunts threats for a VYing, was that Ethan wasn't her only target. VY had a history of VYing out anyone who didn't fit her VY shown of perfection. That night, as Ethan slept, sedated by pain meds, I pored over the security footage. It was worse than I'd imagined. VY in her designer yoga gear, her blonde hair flawless, poured bleach on Ethan's plants with surgical precision. She waited until he wheeled into VYEW, then started her attack, knowing he'd try to save the tomatoes and peppers he'd grown from seeds. His therapy, his pride, his connection to Sarah. The footage showed Ethan struggling, his limited mobility making him an easy target as he reached for the hose, bleach splashing his hands and legs. And VY? She watched with a smug little smile before strolling back to her house. Denver PD's Officer Jenkins called as I rewatched the tape. "Mr. Carter, This looks more like a neighborhood spat than assault, he said, sounding uneasy. Vivian had already spun her story, claiming she was maintaining community property and Ethan had interfered. I kept my voice steady. The garden's on my land, fully ADA compliant with all permits. I have video of her waiting for my disabled son to show up before pouring bleach. That's intent. Silence. Vivian, a former corporate big shot with Denver's elite on speed dial, had worked her magic. I'd seen this before, power bending the system. Officer, I said, I'm Super VY sorry Deputy U.S. Marshal James Carter. I know EVY Denke, procedure, and assault. This isn't a dispute. It's a crime. The line went quiet. I wasn't aware of your position, sir, he finally said. Few are, I replied. But if this isn't handled right, I'll use every legal tool I've got. Ethan woke later, staring at the ceiling, his bandaged hands limp. How bad is it? He asked. Your hand will heal, I said. No permanent damage. He shook his head. Not me, Dad. The garden. Of course. That garden was his heart, his link to Sarah, who'd taught him to love growing things. Some plants are gone, I admitted, but we'll replant. The soil's still good. His eyes glistened. She won't stop, will she? Not until my garden's dead and I'm gone. His words gutted me. My brilliant, perceptive boy, trapped in a body that didn't cooperate, saw Vivian's hatred clearer than I had. She's done, I promised, sitting on his bed. I'm not just your dad, I am damn good at my job. He managed a small smile. The job you don't brag about at barbecues? That's the one, I said, squeezing his shoulder. Rest up. We fight back tomorrow. The next day, an email from the HOA announced an emergency meeting to address landscaping violations and disruptive behavior, or the timing screamed Vivian's name. She was coming for Ethan, unaware she was about to face a reckoning. The Pinewood Community Center buzzed with homeowners, the air thick with curiosity. I wore my court suit, not my usual jeans, and Ethan insisted on coming, his bandaged hands stark against his wheelchair. It's about me, Dad, he said. I need to be there. He was right. Vivian ran the show from a polished table, her voice dripping with authority as she ranted about escalating violations and soil disruptions. She never named us, but her glances at Ethan said enough. She proposed new bylaws to ban gardens like his and let the HOA tear down non-compliant structures. It was a power grab disguised as policy. When she opened the floor, a few neighbors questioned the meeting's urgency, but Vivian deflected like a pro. Any final comments? She asked, ignoring my raised hand. I've got something to say, Ethan called out, his voice cutting through the room. Heads turned. Vivian's smile froze. This is a homeowners meeting, she snapped. Only owners speak. Ethan didn't flinch. I'm inequality. Yesterday, Mrs. Harper poured bleach on my therapeutic garden while I was there. I got these burns trying to stop her. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Vivian's face reddened. That's a lie. I was maintaining community grounds you've misused. If you hurt yourself, that's on you. Ethan held his ground. My garden's on our property, fully approved, part of my therapy for cerebral palsy. We have video of you waiting for me to show up before pouring bleach. The room buzzed with shock. I stood straightening my tie. Those proper channels Vivian mentioned? We've started with an ADA federal complaint, criminal assault charges, and a CIVIL lawsuit. Her eyes narrowed. Your threats don't scare me, Mr. Carter. This community has standards, no exceptions. She glanced at Ethan, dismissive. I'm not threatening, I said, walking to the front. I'm stating facts. Let's talk about your harassment of disabled residents. I placed a folder on the table. This has statements from 7 former Pinewood residents driven out by your selective rules and vandalism. 3 faced property damage like Ethan's. Vivian didn't touch the folder. This isn't the place for your grudges, she sneered. Community standards don't include assaulting disabled kids, I shot back, or embezzling HOA funds, faking bank records, or violating federal CIVIL rights laws. Her face went white. How dare you? My connections, actually, I cut in, pulling my credentials. You don't know who you're dealing with. Super VY sorry Deputy U.S. Marshal James Carter, Denver Field Office. The room went silent. My job gives me skills like digging into backgrounds. You've targeted disabled residents for years, pushing them out. You've also siphoned Dula $180,000 in HOA funds through fake landscaping contracts. A board member, retired accountant Carl Rogers, leaned forward. That's a bold claim. Got proof. Financial records, shell company filings, bank transfers, I said. It's with the FBI and DOJ now. Vive V. Wine sputtered. This is slander. I'll sue. Truth beats slander, I replied, nodding to the back. The doors opened, and former residents I'd tracked down entered, including Dr. Maya Patel, who'd sold her home after her husband's wheelchair ramp was vandalized. These neighbors will testify about your discrimination, I said. They're part of a class action lawsuit against you and the HOA. I played the security footage on the meeting screen. Vive VY in methodical, pouring bleach as Ethan approached, ignoring his pleas, letting the liquid splash him. The room erupted. Neighbors swarmed Ethan with support. Others grilled the board. Vive VY sat, frozen, her empire crumbling. It's a misunderstanding, she mumbled. I was upholding standards. Dr. Patel cut in, like my husband's ramp was unsightly, or the therapy dog you hounded the Lees about. Carl stood. I moved to remove Vive VY Harper as president and board member. The vote was a landslide. She was out. As she grabbed her things, hands shaking, I leaned in. This is just the start, Vive VY. Assault charges, CIVYL suits, federal probes. You didn't just attack Ethan's garden, you attacked my son. Her eyes flashed fear. You've ruined me, she whispered. No, I said. You did that when you decided my son's disability didn't belong in your perfect world. She fled, neighbors shouting after her. Ethan watched, a mix of relief and sorrow in his eyes. Did you know, he asked later, about her stealing and hurting others? I shook my head. Not until she came for you. Then I dug like I do for work. The pattern was OBVYS. Months later, Pinewood changed. Vive VY faced charges of assault, harassment, financial crimes. My EVY Denke led to a plea deal, restitution, probation, no HOA roles. The HOA reformed under Carl, with new rules banning disability discrimination. Ethan's garden sparked a movement. Neighbors built a community garden with accessible beds, and families like Dr. Patel's returned. Ethan, inspired, started a gardening program for disabled kids, teaching them to grow despite their challenges, just as he had. His garden bloomed bigger than ever, a symbol of resilience. My career shifted too. My boss pushed me for a DOJ task force on disability rights, letting me tackle systemic bias while staying a Marshal. 6 months later, Pinewood held its first inclusion festival. Ethan guided a girl with cerebral palsy through planting a seedling, her smile mirroring his. Vive VY's cruelty, meant to erase us, had instead built a community that embraced difference. Ethan caught my eye across the garden and gave a thumbs up, his hands healed, his spirit whole. Justice, sometimes, grows like a garden slow, steady from the ashes of hate. What do you think? Was Vive VY Harper just a control freak? Or was her hatred deeper, rooted in prejudice? Should Ethan and James have left Pinewood instead of fighting? Could you forgive someone who hurt your family like that? Or would you push for every possible consequence? Drop your thoughts below, hit that like button, and subscribe for more stories that spark real talk.